Hello everyone, welcome to ML News. We're going to take a quick, brief, tiny look of what happened in the last 2 weeks in the world of machine learning, AI, and I guess encompassing pretty much everything nowadays. So first, I've already mentioned this in a previous video a little bit, but Google released Gemma. Gemma is, I guess, a variant of the name Gemini. These are open models that are in smaller sizes than kind of the largest language models. So they are 2 billion parameter models and 7 billion parameter models. These outperform respective Llama 2 models at the same sizes and even at a little bit bigger sizes. So they are quite performant. They are available, they're openly accessible, you can use them under some limited circumstances for commercial activity, and they do release a technical report on how they have built these. Now, these are not the same as like Gemini 1.5 with the 1 million token context length. These, I believe their context size is about 8,000 tokens, so they are in architecture quite similar to Llama models. As I said previously, this is essentially, I believe, a marketing ploy from Google right here, releasing these models. They're already topping the leaderboards, so all in all, very good development, I think. Although all of this has been overshadowed last week, and if you've seen my last video, you will know, by people discovering that Gemini image generation is a bit wacky when it comes to sort of bias correction and representation of people. So straight up refusing to generate any white people or any images of white people and things like that. One interesting development, again, watch that video if you haven't seen it, but one interesting development here is that the person, the product lead from Google, who essentially came out and said, "Oh, we're sorry, we were made aware of some historical inaccuracies. We will fix those," has made their X account private, apparently, or Twitter, whatever, has made that account private. Now, it's totally conceivable that douchebags have started sort of harassing the person or just kind of bombing, spamming, and so on. So that's totally fine, but it was not a good look. Like, it was gaslighting in the highest degree. Like, oh yeah, let's just say the problem is historical inaccuracies and not like the obvious problem that was barely visible with the thing. So I just thought that was an interesting development. Again, if you want to know more, watch that video. I also found the development around this a little bit funny. So day later, apparently, they refused to just generate images of people, like just Gemini saying, "I cannot generate images of people." That was their hot fix, their patch to just say, well, no images of people at all until we fix this problem here. Then saying, if you then said, "I've seen you produce images of people," it answers, "It is important to clarify that I have never been able to generate images directly." So I'm not sure. It would be interesting to know what the exact prompting behind this was and the changes being done here. Also, not said that this is true, right? This is just an LLM doing its LLM thing, but I do find it interesting, this new world when software patches are essentially sort of prompt changes and then the interactions with those just make for hilarious content. All right, Groq is all the rage now. Groq is a company that is, as far as I know, spun off from Google's TPU group, if I'm informed correctly, and they have built a card that can serve language models really quickly. So make long novel. So this is Mixtral 8x7b, and you see it runs at like 532 tokens a second. So this is insane speed. This allows for new use cases to be accessible by these language models, and very cool. So this is really special hardware. I'm sure there's some software tricks and algorithm tricks, but this is special hardware. Yeah, people talking about this insane speed of Groq. Groq says they have this LPU, this language processing unit. So that's not a GPU, it's an LPU. And the difference to something like an Nvidia GPU is that they have a different kind of memory. So here you can see latency and throughput. This is a benchmark from a third party, and they had to extend their axes here in order just to accommodate how fast and how much throughput Groq has and how fast it is. It's pretty insane. However, there is a trade-off. As I said, they use different memory than a regular GPU would use, and therefore that makes it such that each card only has a very small amount of memory. So you need a lot of these cards in parallel to even serve one of these big models. Now you can achieve massive throughput, obviously, economies of scale kick in, but you can't just get one of those cards and then serve a large model. And that's where people quickly realized, hey, okay, it might not be the wonder weapon here. It is very cool, but each chip only has about 200 megabytes of SRAM. And therefore you would need, I don't know, hundreds of cards in order just to serve this Mixtral model that we've seen before. Again, with the higher throughput, it might be totally worth it if you're a data center owner, but throughput over time. You see the graph on the top right here? That's Groq. That's pretty insane. People calculate that you need about 320 of these cards or 2 full racks to just serve a single Llama 70B. And if you calculate the cost of these cards, then that'd be about 10 million US dollars. It's not the end all, it's gonna solve everything, but it is definitely very cool development in order to push language model inference ahead. At the same time, Nvidia unveils EOS, tech power up, right? This is essentially pulling together a bunch of their DGX systems to create a super duper computer. So 576 DGX H100 systems wired together into one computer. Each of these DGX systems has 8 H100s, making for a whopping 4,608 H100 GPUs. Note, each of these puppies will cost you, I don't know what they cost right now, like 20K or something like this, or north of that. This is massive. It's ranked number 9 in top 500 supercomputers of the world, with a staggering 18.4 exaflops FP8 performance. This website here I found pretty cool, Gpulist.ai. It's by Andromeda AI, and it's essentially Craigslist, but for GPUs. People rent out their GPU capacity. It's also as shady as Craigslist, right? So that it's just a listing, and it just says, well, you'll get bare metal access, and sometimes it says, okay, you get SSH access to it or something like this. But essentially just allows you to contact these people and then make out a deal of how you're going to use these GPUs. This seems fairly large, so the comment posting here, actually there's a lot of H100s here going around. I'm not sure where people get these from, but sometimes, oh, there's 849 these. Okay, this may be more common. So Canada Ethernet, 1 H100 available. It's on an Ubuntu VM, and you get it minimum 1 week. So if you want some GPUs and you don't have super confidential data because you are going to use other people's hardware, this might be a good option to find some good deals. Wired has an interview with Demis Hassabis on how far you get with scale, apparently. I guess just on the future of AI. And if you read the interview, it's kind of a mix between, yeah, scale is great, we can do scale is awesome, Gemini is awesome, these models are awesome, but also scale only gets you so far. There needs to be something else. So Demis says, my belief is to get to AGI, you're going to need probably several more innovations as well as the maximum scale. There's no let up in the scaling, we're not seeing an asymptote, yada yada yada, there's still gains to be made. So my view is you've got to push the existing techniques to see how far they go, but you're not going to get new capabilities like planning or tool use or agent-like behavior just by scaling techniques. It's not magically going to happen. It's very interesting because I think that is a current contention. Like, it's very easy to say, oh, to get to AGI, you need something else, because first of all, AGI isn't the defined term and something else isn't the defined term. So you can redefine these two terms as you wish, and then you can always find something that's still wrong or in a way in which you're still correct. If you do that for long enough, your name will become Gary Marcus. But other than that, these are fairly more concise predictions saying, okay, you're not going to get planning or tool use or agent-like behavior. They're not super defined, but they are. And we're already seeing tool use, for example, being built into these large language models and get better with scaling. So it will be very interesting to see whether Demis turns out to be ultimately correct on his predictions, or whether one or the other of these things will be available just by scaling language model and kind of training them on tool use data and so on. Tom's Hardware writes, legendary chip architect Jim Keller responds to Sam Altman's plan to raise $7 trillion to make AI chips, saying, I can do it for less than $1 trillion. Jeez. We've gone off the rails. So Jim Keller, apparently legendary CPU developer, now working at the company that makes chips themselves. They claims that he could do it for a lot less. Yes, I guess. I don't know, as soon as you go into like money that's way beyond the current total market value of chips, I feel many claims can be made. It will be interesting going forward to see kind of who takes the lead in chip development, how that's going to be playing out. In any case, I'm not sure if bickering about 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 7 trillion is going to make that big of a difference. From one legendary person to another legendary person, and legendary here spelled with a capital L, AI may destroy humankind in just 2 years, expert says. Of course, Eliezer Yudkowsky saying, if you put me to a wall and forced me to put probabilities on things, I have a sense that our current timeline looks more like 5 years than 50 years. Could be 2 years, could be 10, well, could be anything. Like with the trillions, it is absolutely useless to make these speculations and then, I don't know, saying things about Terminator-like apocalypse and Matrix hellscape. The difficulty is people do not realize we have a shred of a chance that humanity survives. Oh. Yes, of course, of course. Yudkowsky has, I think, retracted statements on bombing data centers. Like that would be useful. In any case, read this as you would read like a comic book for entertainment. Yeah, I feel like that it's at least makes you giggle. Otherwise, this serves no purpose at all. Sora continues to dominate headlines. Video generation model by OpenAI. We've talked a little bit about this in the last news episode, but this can create clips, single shot clips up to 1 minute, I believe. And they look pretty awesome, I have to say. And more kind of examples come out of Sora creating pictures, creating clips. OpenAI marketing department in full gear. No, you don't have access to this model yet. A select few have access to this model. Not you. You are just a pleb. You're not the chosen person. So marvel at other people using the cool thing, and OpenAI's marketing department having tight control over exactly which things go out to the public and which things don't. What is interesting is here's an example of Sora scaling with compute. So essentially saying the more compute they throw into one of these generations, the better quote unquote, the more realistic, I guess, it gets. So base compute 4x. However, like they've also completely stopped to give us any sense of the scale, the absolute scale of things. So for now, it's just like base compute, however much that is, and then 4x compute and then 16x compute. Yeah, in any case, what we can infer from that is that there is an iterative process, very probably, to determine one of these samples. So it's not like single forward pass of anything, but iterative process like you would be used to from diffusion, doing many steps across the span of time to refine and refine the output. What's also pretty cool are demonstrations of changing things, like this being a base video, and not only can Sora generate things, but also kind of generate things according to some input, like some input video. So in case here, people changing the surroundings of the car, or the car itself, like the vibe of the video and so on, while keeping the general motion, I guess, and the general concept clear. So I think that's pretty cool. Make it go underwater. Yeah, why not? Look at that. Or that. Nice. Rainbow Road. Keep the video the same, but make it winter. Animation style. Charcoal drawing. Yeah, make sure to be black and white. Not exactly, but close. Maybe it's one of those things where it's actually black and white, but your eyes trick you. But I think I'm seeing color. Wait. Yeah, no, this is definitely color. Actually not so sure now. Okay, no, this is definitely red. This is definitely red, the backlights. Yeah, it's not fully black and white. Cyberpunk, medieval, very nice. They had drones following carts in medieval times. Also, the horse legs, they look... yeah, why not? Dinosaurs, pixel art. So many cool things about Sora keep coming out, and also many cool things about Gemini 1.5 Pro keep coming out, especially obviously the insanely large context size of Gemini 1.5 Pro. People feeding very long things inside of it and see whether it can handle the long context, an entire code base, and then instructing it to code something based on top of that. I think this is probably going to be one of the best applications for something like this. If you have very long, yeah, something like a code base or a reference documentation or something like this. Like the important parts of that would fit into 1,000,000 tokens, and being able to sort of cross-reference things inside of that and then generate based on that is probably a very good use case. I know they can retrieve well across the 1,000,000 tokens, kind of like point to individual things if they need to retrieve them, but it will still be interesting to research how performant it actually is when you put more and more and more stuff into that context. My personal estimate would still be that putting less things into the context is more beneficial, will make stuff more accurate. Or what I can also imagine is that they trained it in such a way that they could have achieved better performance on small context compared to a large context, but they traded it off to have sort of equally performing but worse performance across the entire context length. Not yet clear, but it will be interesting to see. This is pretty cool, feeding an entire short movie into this. So what Gemini will do is it will take the movie, split it into frames, and then essentially use the frames as tokens, or tokenize the frames. And you can fit pretty long. You can see here 44 minutes and 7 seconds video. You can fit that into the context size of Gemini 1.5 Pro because it can also consume images. And Matt Schumer here says, went straight from full movie to a summary in seconds, no transcription, no intermediate steps, just visual tokens to summary. Now, I've seen other people have pointed out that the summaries it makes aren't always super duper accurate or well done, but it's still pretty impressive. And it speaks to what I said before, right? The main question is going to be, what are the dynamics and the characteristics of performance across this entire context window? Concurrently, UC Berkeley coming out with a paper that's titled World Model on Million Length Video and Language with Ring Attention. This is an actual research paper that is very concurrent, as I said, to Gemini 1.5 Pro, doing retrieval experiments across very long context with what's called ring attention. If you're interested, we can make an entire video on ring attention. That is in the makings, so keep looking for that. But it's a cool new technique. It is going to be some sort of approximation to attention. Like, it's not the fact that we can now scale the classic transformers across this huge 1,000,000 token context size. So it's a trick. People have come up with many different tricks of sort of doing long attention, and this one seems quite promising. Phil Wang, also known as Lucid Rains, already has an implementation on ring attention up, even though the paper is super duper new. Yeah, what's interesting to see in the README of this repository is Phil saying, I will be running out of sponsorship early next month. If you'd like to see that this project gets completed, sponsor me, or I will be leaving the open source scene for employment. So just wanted to bring this to people's attention. By that, I mainly mean people like companies. CTV News Vancouver writes, Air Canada's chatbot gave BC man the wrong information. Now the airline has to pay for the mistake. So apparently a person went on the chatbot for Air Canada that's kind of powered by a large language model, and they went there looking for very specific questions about what's called bereavement rates. These are reduced fares provided in the event someone needs to travel due to the death of an immediate family member. So the chatbot, this person has lost a family member, wanted to do air travel due to that, and inquired about, cheaper rates or specific fares, specific prices for this situation. And the chatbot gave them wrong information, saying that he could claim those even after the fact. And when he wanted to do that, the customer support people said, nope, that's not possible. You're not getting your money. Now the question is, who is responsible? And courts say that, in fact, Air Canada is responsible for the things their chatbot said and has to actually comply with what the chatbot promised. Air Canada tried to push the responsibility. Air Canada suggests that the chatbot is a separate legal entity that is responsible for its own actions. What? Oh no, the piece of software that we actively deployed on our website is a separate legal entity. Yeah, no. I get that as a lawyer, you will have to argue. And in this case, it was probably like the last remaining thing that you could even conceivably argue, but it's so ridiculous. No way. If you deploy a piece of software, you are responsible for what that software does. Not if you program it, not if you make the open source library that's then part of it. If you deploy it and it interacts with your customers and then it promises stuff to your customers, then you are responsible. And that's the same with every other piece of software as well. There's absolutely no difference of whether this is an LLM chatbot or anything else that executes code. It's always the same. And it's pretty funny that Air Canada trying to weasel their way out of this. So no, Air Canada must honor a refund policy invented by the airline's chatbot. So obviously companies are trying to alleviate costs on their customer success operations. In this case, they may want to calculate if they don't incur more costs due to stuff that's invented by. It could be a strategy. Like, I think the damages here to be paid were about $600 and then I think about $20 in tax. It says it somewhere. In addition, the airline was ordered to pay 36.14 in prejudgment interest, not tax, and $125 in fees. And probably the lawyers grabbed 10, 20, 50K out of the people here. So all in all, who succeeded? The lawyers. Lawyers should be fans of LLMs. Like the amount of litigation and the amount of contracting and so they have to do just because people want to use or have used or mistakenly used LLMs is going to be staggering. In any case, this was more about the principle, I guess, than about the money, but it could be a thought, you know, as a just let an LLM do your customer success. And if they promise something that doesn't exist, you just pay it. It'll be like $600 in this case. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe the savings and not having to hire more people is totally worth it for these companies. I don't know. It'll be interesting to think of a future. I think right now everyone's trying to guardrail everything because they feel, okay, our customer success operation should continue to be as is. Like there is a completely defined things. Okay, here are the things we pay, here are the things we don't pay, and so on. And, you know, we must adhere to that, cannot promise anything else, and so on. What if the mentality around that changes? It will just be like, okay, here's a set of guidelines. We know the thing is going to hallucinate every now and then. And when it does, we'll just sort of take it into account. Like, I feel there are still laws against customers abusing that. Like, if I were to go to Air Canada chatbot and kind of like prompt hack it into giving me stuff, I'm pretty sure a court would side with Air Canada in that's essentially kind of me emotionally abusing a customer support rep until they promise, like, give me what I want. But other than that, could be totally viable future and a fun future if these things are not so strict. Kareem Carr tweeting out, Xing out, I'm not sure what it's called. It finally happened, a peer-reviewed journal article with what appear to be nonsensical AI-generated images. So this has become known as giant rat balls. The pictures, they look from afar like they could be in like a biology journal, but they make no sense, right? The writing's mostly rat. It just says rat. Yeah, we see that. Look. So this article has pictures that were generated by Midjourney. Now, it is a bit interesting. It's a bit more interesting than that. Scientists aghast at bizarre AI rat with huge genitals in peer-reviewed article. This is a fairly reputable journal where this was published. This is not just like a pay $5,000 and you will get published journal. This is a fairly reputable journal. So here is another picture. You see it rarely makes sense if you actually look closely. Second, the images are created by Midjourney and the authors acknowledge this in the paper. So the authors say the images are generated by Midjourney. Third, there were 2 reviewers, and one of the reviewers actually brought this up. And apparently also a reviewer, I'm not sure if it's the same reviewer or a different reviewer, said, I was only looking at the scientific content of the work, right, and reviewed it based on that. And we have also a statement from the reviewer saying like they did raise concerns about the images. So they're saying, the journal says an investigation is currently being conducted. So this article in Vice here details, our investigation revealed that one of the reviewers raised valid concerns about the figures and requested author revisions. Even the reviewer saying, okay, the figures need to be revised. The authors failed to respond to these requests. We are investigating how our processes failed to act on the lack of author compliance with the reviewer's requirements. So it's a bit more tricky than just, oh, a bunch of researchers tried to get a fake paper through and the reviewers didn't notice. It seems that the ultimate person who, I guess multiple people here always contribute to the things, but ultimately it was the editors who didn't make sure that the authors actually changed the things that the reviewers were asking them to change that made it ultimately go through and being printed as a paper. I guess mistakes like this happen. It's also probably very common to just kind of assume the authors will concur with what the reviewers request to change. I don't know if they've even said, yeah, okay, we'll change it or something like this, but it is an interesting story, and the meme of the giant rat balls will forever live on in our hearts. Andrej Karpathy said he left OpenAI, assuring that it's not a result of drama or anything like this. It's just a change in scenery, saying that the last year in OpenAI was really great. The team is really strong, the people are wonderful, the roadmap is exciting, and we all have a lot to look forward to. He says, my immediate plans is to work on my personal project and see what happens. And immediately following this up with a video explanation, 2 hours on tokenizers, enlightening the bizarre world of why reversing strings with LLMs is really, really difficult, and why different languages give you different results, and so on. So if you want to explore so far, I believe, a bit underexplored aspect of large language models, definitely look into Andrej's tutorial on tokenizers. Very cool, and as Andrej is, very, very clear explanations. You will know a lot more after this. Nature writes, what the EU's tough AI law means for research and ChatGPT. The EU AI Act is the world's first major legislation on artificial intelligence and strictly regulates general purpose models. As you know, the EU AI Act has been in development for a number of years now, and is now finally coming into effect, rolling out and so on. It's been changed quite a bit over the years. You know, even myself, I'm not entirely sure what's in the current version and how much it's still going to change, but the approach is to categorize broadly applications into risk categories, and then to tie what you have to do according to the risk category. The most risky things are what's called unacceptable risk, and those are just banned, like not allowed to do. For example, those that use biometric data to infer sensitive characteristics such as people's sexual orientation. So is this banned? Also, what's hilarious, there's like a limit for when you have to do something, and that is 10 to the 25 flops, completely arbitrary number that is going to be meaningless, probably even already before the AI Act has really rolled out finally. I could not make up worse advice for these policymakers if I wanted to. It's like, okay, let's pick a completely arbitrary number and say, here is where we draw a line. Like, what? I believe that you can entirely transparently see the lobbyists being like, okay, what can we do that our competitors can't do? And let's like draw a nice line between the two, how it is the next 3 years. And we don't care about any after that. All right, unacceptable risk. Do you realize that a basic linear regression would fall under this? The EU effectively now bans drawing a straight line across a few data points if those data points happen to coincide with the data categories that are collected here. Like, this is the level of dumbness these kinds of laws come to. Yes, I know, I am making sort of pulling it to the extreme here. I know this is meant for super duper transformers informing these things and then sitting in automated systems that make decisions about people's lives and so on. I see what the fear is, but I doubt whether what they're trying to do, what they're intending to do, matches with what the effect of this is going to be. And I still believe the effect is going to just be that a more monopolization of bigger companies, making it harder for newcomers, making it harder to enter this market, and giving the governments more control over things, which they will probably not do good things with. Just an opinion. Cohere for AI launches Aya. Aya is an open source, massively multilingual large language model and a dataset built over 101 different languages all across the world. And this is one of the largest dataset of instruction data that's around. As I said, it's a dataset and a large language model all at once. The dataset is available. The model is open access, whatever that means right now. I guess you can download the model because there's a button that says download the model. Ophir Press found this on Reddit, and I found this to be really interesting. Regional prompting. This is a UI for the technique called Gilgan, and I've linked to the repository. Very cool to use and very exciting new things that are possible. Aria Everyday Activities is a dataset, again released by Meta, that depicts, as you can see, everyday activities. So this has first-person view data, location data, and so on. Meta is actually pushing the metaverse and data sets around that, augmented reality and so on. So collecting a lot of data. They have, as you can see right here, rolling shutter RGB field of 110 degree field of view camera, 150 degree field of view camera for SLAM and hand tracking, infrared illumination, barometer, magnetometer, environmental sensors, spatial microphones, and so on. And then annotated data, per frame eye tracking, 3D trajectories. These data sets, they collect them to be quite universal. So maybe don't want to use all of them at the same time, but they enable a lot of different applications, which is very, very cool. Stability announces Stable Diffusion 3, a text-to-image model using a diffusion transformer architecture for greatly improved performance in multi-subject prompts, image quality, and spelling abilities. Not releasing anything. There is a wait list for early preview. They say this is for gathering insights and improve its performance and safety ahead of the open release. We've also come to know from Stability that open release is going to mean that you can use the model for researchy stuff, but if you want to use it for anything commercial, you have to give them a bit of money. You can see a few examples here. Nice apple, go big or go home. The astronaut riding on things has become a bit of a meme. I mean, the quality is getting absolutely insane with these text-to-image models. Alexa Gordich releasing Hugo LLM. This is a large language model, 7 billion parameter large language model for Balkan languages, Serbian, Bosnian, and Croatian languages. And you can find that on Hugging Face right now. Very, very cool. Open Math Instruct by Nvidia is a math instruction dataset that you can freely use. Actually, freely use might be an overstatement. There is a Nvidia specific license to it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to tell you what this means. I personally think, no legal advice, you can use it freely. Again, not legal advice. This article from Interesting Engineering I found very cool. It's a system that identifies drug combo problems, so interactions between different drugs, specifically as they are transmitting the barrier in your gut. The problem is researching any drug and what it does is already super expensive, but then obviously every drug you add to the regiment of available drugs means it could have interactions with all the other drugs that exist. This system uses a combination of machine learning and actual models of transmissions, models of receptor behavior in the gut to predict interactions between different drugs in terms of their uptake in the gut. So I think that's very cool. I think the pushing into this direction, we already saw this with various DeepMind models of having some sort of expert modeling, like some sort of actual model that is domain informed, that is expert informed in a scientific domain, combine that with machine learning and use these two together in order to draw conclusions is probably, I want to say, the next frontier. I feel like the frontier of we'll just throw a lot of data at stuff and it will give us results. I think the low-hanging fruit in that has probably been taken already, and now it's really about the combination of expertise and machine learning that is going to push ahead. So very, very cool. Very excellent developments. Bloomberg writes, Reddit signs AI content licensing deal ahead of IPO. That being said, this is all person close to the matter said, large unnamed AI company, a lot of dollars involved, about $60 million on an annualized basis, and yada, yada, yada. So this is all, I guess they call it hearsay, right? But this is the chatter right now that Reddit, obviously, recently Reddit has made headlines by sort of capping all of their API access and so on, not being really open anymore to outside developers in a clear move to protect their IP, which is users posting on Reddit, so that you can't via API go and grab all that data. And now the second move is that they themselves are going to make use of that data by licensing it out to other companies. Again, this is all just someone said, someone familiar with the matter, yada, yada, yada. But still, Reddit realizes they sit on a treasure trove of information. That's already evident by people just Googling how to XYZ and then just add Reddit to their Google search query, because they know usually they get okay answers on Reddit, which has had the counter effect that now marketing representatives and so on will try to go and sort of poison Reddit threads by giving, nice looking answers that ultimately link back to their product. Interesting dynamics. In any case, Reddit data may become a staple of one of the big AI companies. So we'll soon have all kinds of AI Redditors around. Isn't that a great future? New Atlas writes, the Seeing Eye Dog V2.0 is shaping up as a game changer. This goes into the details of strapping kind of assistive technologies on top of one of these four-legged robots in order to help blind and seeing visually impaired people to move around safely passage from A to B and so on. The article discusses that the main limitation here is actually the availability of service dogs in general, like guide dogs. There are way too few guide dogs around for all the visually impaired people. They are expensive, they are rare, they need to be trained and so on. In this case, these robots obviously don't. So yeah, you can say they take away the jobs of good, hard-working guide dogs, which I guess, but from all I can see here, actual guide dogs are still preferred to robot dogs. It's just that there aren't nearly enough of them. So these robot dogs, they are shaping up to become very capable and can help with a lot of things. So very cool developments. This paper I found really cool, OS Copilot towards generalist computer agents with self-improvement, using agent-like behavior, but interacting with your operating system. So it can do some stuff on your computer by you just prompting it to do it, opening applications, interacting with applications, even doing kind of multi-step things. I think this is one of the ways we're going to interact more with computers in the future. Maybe, I don't think like the keyboard and programming, using text and so on will ever go away, but probably kind of web browsing or simple things like this could be automated like this. I find this to be a lot more understandable than just voice prompts, like just being like, Alexa, book a flight to XYZ, right? Like it's like, I find voice and sound to be kind of a wonky interface for that. But if at the same time someone shows me, look, I'm now going to this website, I'm going to do this and that, I feel that is a much more viable interface here. But then again, you could just click it yourself. So probably I find the GitHub Copilot to be an extremely good mode of interacting with an LLM. So if we transport that to the world of here, it would be that largely I operate the computer, but I could tab complete like a lot of things. So like if there's a form to be filled out, yes, I know browsers will support me already, but I could maybe just kind of a lot less tab complete, or if there is, I don't know, some standard interactions on website, I just kind of tab complete that away. I think that mode of interacting with computers, I'm looking forward to that a lot. I'm not looking forward to like single prompt and then it will magically go and do something for me. I don't think that's going to be a thing of the near future, and I don't think you would be comfortable with a system like that. Business Insider writes, new report sheds light on Apple's upcoming AI features that will rival Microsoft's Copilot. Now, further down, they say Microsoft's GitHub Copilot, writing code. So it's not like the Microsoft Windows Copilot or the Microsoft 365 Copilot. There are too many Copilots nowadays. It is apparently the GitHub Copilot that Apple targets inside of its Xcode environment. So if you write Swift apps, if you write iPod and iPhone apps, and maybe even what's called macOS apps, that might be really cool to have that available. I do feel GitHub Copilot does its job quite well for what it does for everything else. I've never programmed Swift, so I can't say that. TechCrunch writes, Anthropic takes steps to prevent election misinformation. Yeah, sure. It's they're making a bit of PR. I feel like they're using the opportunity of the election to be like, oh, we have guardrails, we have prompt shield, which I guess prompt shield, cool. The technologies which relies on a combination of AI detection models and rules. Sure, you have a regex and you have some prompt that says if the user asks for voting information, go to this site. I guess it's a good. If I were a company, I would try to use that as well. And lastly, AI comes to the world of beauty as eyelash robot uses artificial intelligence to place fake lashes. This details how this robot can place fake eyelashes in a more precise way than humans could, and as far as I can see, it's also a bit faster or cheaper or something like this. This is a purely mechanical task that so far humans did by hand, and now a robot can do. Artificial intelligence is a bit of an overstatement. Like, they use computer vision to detect where the eyelids and the corners of the eyes and so on are, which is really cool. But then there is the for, and then there's the against, and the against is, oh no, we have to be very careful about this. So there's potential risks. The device's proximity to sensitive area could raise concerns about the risk of eye infections or allergic reactions to the materials used in the lash extensions. I guess they just they had someone just say, well, say anything bad about this, like anything generic that's bad about this. And this person was like, I guess you could be allergic to the materials. And they were like, oh yes, there's also potential risks. I'm not sure I'm buying that. You decide for yourself. I feel having a machine do a purely mechanical task is fine. It's not going to steal a lot of jobs, I guess. All good. I just found it funny that the news article must have this structure, but here is something new that technology can do, but there is also risks. With that being said, there's also a risk that this video gets too long, and with that, I'll finish it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.